Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons. Specifically, who is Gary Gygax's gaming successor? Okay? Alright, so what I'm talking about is, who is his gaming child? Who is his spiritual successor from the perspective of gaming? Right? So, basically, Gary Gygax actually had children. The one I'm familiar with is Luke Gygax. And Luke Gygax is actually in the military. And most of Gary Gygax's children have absolutely circled the gaming world, but all of them have iterated. None of them have really done what he did, which was innovate. So Gary Gygax is the father of tabletop role-playing games because he took wargaming and he applied an innovation that was so powerful that it created a new platform for games. It really, Dungeons & Dragons is not actually a new game. It is a new platform for games. Like, it's a superstructure. It's that innovative, right? So if you're going to be Gary Gygax's gaming successor, if you are the modern Gary Gygax, if you are the next Gary Gygax, then you need to be an innovator, right? Now, there are actually major innovators in the field of gaming, in tabletop role-playing games. There are absolutely innovators within tabletop role-playing games. There's some really significant ones. But if we're really going to talk about Gary Gygax as a whole, then what you really need to be talking about is major innovation at the level that Gary achieved, right? So we are definitely there, right? So, and one of the things you see right now is just an absolute dedication of the community to iteration, to the level of it being so strong that it's I think it's set us back, right? So the biggest thing is OSR, old school rules. OSR is a massive community of brilliant gamers who are absolutely dedicated to continuing to play the game in exactly the same way it was played in first, second, and third edition. With I would even say first, second is really where you're going to find most of your grognards, most of your OSR fans, right? So those guys are absolutely dedicated to iteration, okay? But if you're going to be the modern Gary Gygax, you have to be an innovator, okay? So in my opinion, we don't really know yet who the modern Gary Gygax is. I think there are two gentlemen currently within the community who are the closest to achieving it, but it has not been achieved. I don't think anybody has really seized the pure innovative spirit that Gary built this tabletop hobby on, okay? Those two guys are Monty Cook and Fred Hicks. Both of them are brilliant, and the work they're doing absolutely honors Gary. And I think they are his biggest, their work rests on his shoulders clearly, right? But again, I think there's quite a bit of iteration and not as much innovation as would be needed to say one of these guys is his gaming successor. One of these guys is the modern Gary Gygax, okay? Now, there are three things that I think need to be achieved by one person for them to be considered the modern Gary Gygax. And those three goals are the following. One, getting rid of round-by-round combat. It's desperately needed. Right now, the tabletop role-playing games are on the verge of a massive change to the hobby, and that is the hobby as a spectator sport. I think Dungeons & Dragons right now is ready to become a major spectator sport, okay? A spectator pastime. Of course, it's not actually a sport. So a spectator pastime, a spectator activity. That's the best way to put it. It's about to become a huge content platform. It's already there to some extent, but right now the only people who really watch Dungeons and Dragons games are people who have an incredible tolerance for rules and crunch. So right now I feel like the world is waiting for round by round combat to go away, so that you can run any combat within 10 minutes, and once you have that, then combat will match the rest of the game. So Mike Mearls, another brilliant games designer, he put into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that the game is about exploration, interaction, and combat. I think he's 100% right, and that's the right mix, right? But you look at any Dungeons & Dragons game today, and it's going to be 75 to 80% combat, and maybe 10% interaction, and 10%, and maybe 5 or even 1% exploration. Very few DMs actually deal with the exploration issue at all, and I think it's a sad part of the game. Like, it's something we need to fix. It's not a sad part, but it's just something that we really need to fix. So with that said, right, the gaming successor of Gary Gygax is going to be a person who gets rid of round by round combat and gives us a system that allows any combat from 2 to 20 participants. Anything above that is mass combat, and would have its own system. The gaming successor would give us a system that allows 2 to 20 characters that combat to run in 10 minutes, no matter what the number was. Okay? So anybody who does that, they've completed the first of the 3 pillars that will be needed to really to claim that title of Gary Gygax's gaming successor. The second one would be getting the game down to movie length. So, Americans love the movies. We still go. We spend billions of dollars every year. And even on television, movies are a beautiful, wonderful American tradition, right? And anyone that you talk to, if you say, hey, you want to go see a movie, they're not going to look at you like you have 2 heads, right? They're going to say, yeah, sure. Or they're going to say, not this evening, whatever, right? But it's not an odd request. Right now, Dungeons & Dragons takes 4 hours, and that is reasonable DMs. I have sat at so many tables, I can't even remember them all, where I've had to go to Game Masters, and this has not even been a rare conversation, and say, could you limit your game to 4 hours? The fact that I even have to ask that question it just drives me crazy. Okay, all right, but the idea that you're going to go to somebody and say, hey, do you want to do this thing with me for 4 hours? It's extremely rare. Virtually nothing lasts 4 hours. It's this old holdover from 1974, and it needs to disappear. So the Gary Gygax gaming successor will bring the length of the game down to movie length, and that means 90 minutes, 120 minutes max. Okay? The last thing that the Gary Gygax gaming successor will do is they will shift the balance. Okay? They will shift the balance from where it is right now, which is the fans of the game will be more fluff and story based than crunch and rules based. So right now, I would say that it's 80-20. If you ask a Dungeons & Dragons fan, say, what do you love about the game? They're going to say, oh, I love building characters. That is a major, and they're going to say, I can put together a great spell list, and, I can really give you a good build where you're going to get your max damage points out, all that kind of thing, right? So I think we need to flip to where it's about 55-45. We need to get it to the point where we have 55% story fans and 45% rules fans, right? And those rules are going to be highly constrained and far more elegant than they currently are. Although Mike Mearls has done a tremendous job with 5th edition. It is by far the best edition that's ever been written. And again, it honors Gary Gygax. It truly honors Gary Gygax. So those are the 3 Herculean tasks that the gaming successor of Gary Gygax will need to achieve. Getting rid of round-by-round combat, 10-minute combats for any number of characters from 2 to 20, and getting the game down to movie length, and getting the player mix, the fan mix, to 55% story fan, 45% rules fan. And when these things are achieved, I truly believe, right now we're at between 2 and 3 million Dungeons and Dragons players. When these things are achieved, we will arrive where we. Oh, and by the way, in the 90s there were 10 million Dungeons and Dragons players. Okay. But if the Gary Gygax's gaming successor is able to achieve these, I think it will naturally, within 5 years, bring us up to 10 at max, bring us up to 20 million players, and that is where the Dungeons and Dragons community actually should be. We're at 10% of capacity right now, and so that's my take on the Gary Gygax gaming successor. And I think that's what needs to be achieved in order to get there. Thank you.